Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We have been discussing the knowledge process available exclusively to those who are in pursuit of yoga. The others don't have this. Otherwise, the knowledge process is that we hear from authorities on the subject, we read the books and textbooks on the subject, and through the media we get much of information and knowledge. And then we have our thought process, which is the empirical thought process. And it culminates with these instrumentations and with these processes. Whereas in yoga, there is something unique offered by the process of yoga, and that is intuitive mysticism. Basically, in the Adhyatmic realm, or what we call a spiritual realm, we do not have sciences which can give some knowledge, because we know that sciences are books of valid knowledge as believed by people of our times. And we get valid knowledge by studying sciences and studying with scientific methods. So let me tell you here that we of our generation, the people of our generation believe the science is always something that gives valid knowledge. But again, this is just a belief. It has not been true. Because these sciences that we have today have been changing from time to time. So, what science is telling us today, scientists are telling us today, they are giving us some knowledge, but then they are also invalidating the knowledge, refuting the knowledge, setting aside the knowledge given by the same process by the scientists of earlier era. So we in the world had so many eras in scientific processes. Historically, we know that the sciences came to us from Ptolemy, and via scientists of various times, it came to Einstein, and now even post-Einstein era, we have scientists who tell us about. And of course, the scientists give us some new knowledge, no doubt about it, but very often the knowledge of the earlier times is invalidated by the present science and scientists. So earlier scientists have been proved wrong. They have applied the intellectual process, logical process, perhaps even scientific process. And the older scientists and sciences have been disproved by modern sciences. And we can also infer that modern sciences will be disproved by the sciences and scientists of generations to come. So it is not really true to emphatically believe that the sciences are books of valid knowledge. They are valid for the time frame and they get invalidated in different time frame. So that is about the sciences that we have today, and we have concept of shastras, and shastras are not sciences. Shastras are shastras. We should not be venturing to translate them into any other language and now in English as sciences. The shastras have been truly valid knowledge for all times. The shastras have not been invalidated for all the time from time immemorial. Whereas the empirical sciences are only valid for that time frame and they get invalidated prospectively. The point is that we are endowed with something that is called as shastras, and shastras are eternal knowledge. So in Adhyatma we have something called as Shastra Pravartanam, Shastra Adhyayanam, study of Shastras. So Shastras have timeless postulations, but the sciences don't have timeless postulations. They are valid until they are invalidated. That's all. So their validity is limited by time, and we have seen in the history of sciences, history of science, that from Ptolemy, as we remember, and perhaps even before Ptolemy, we had so many people who had this empirical process of knowledge, and they came out with certain revelations, but then they're disproved in prospective times. The Shastras have faultless, immaculate, timeless postulations. This is unique thing about life. So what is not going to change at all is Shastric postulations. Insofar as the sciences are concerned, you see, the science is totally under the gravities of terrestrial forces. If some terrestrial conditions change for us, then the science also will be changing. All these sciences are on the surface of planet. The planet is working with given gravities and certain terrestrial conditions. Now, if those change, the sciences will change. Say, for instance, the Earth is rotating around its axis at a velocity of 1000 miles per hour, and therefore it completes a one axial orbit in 24 hours. And that is one of the basic conditions for certain scientific laws which are operating on the planet. If the Earth is going to rotate on the axial rotation at double the pace or half the pace or change of pace even, many laws are going to change. Because if this rotation is going to change, it is because of the gravity. So if the gravity of the planet changes, so many things as basic laws of modern science are going to change. I imagine that if the earth is to rotate in an opposite direction, so many laws are going to change, so many laws are going to get subverted. So, with these given conditions that earth rotates in the way it is rotating today, and it rotates at particular velocity, and then the 23.5 degrees that it sways from the east side to west side to east side, these all governing the physical laws of physics. The earth is orbiting around the sun. Now, if that orbit, in the direction it is taking place and at the velocity with which it is taking place, which is something of the order of 66,000 miles per hour, and therefore we complete one orbit in 365 days. Now, if that is to change, if the 66,000 miles is to become 76,000 miles or 56,000 miles, so many laws will be changed. So many physical laws will change. If the earth is to be going for orbital rotation in opposite direction or not at all orbit, so many things are going to change. So if the axial rotation stops, physical laws are going to change. If the axial rotation is modified, physical laws are going to change. If the orbital rotation is going to stop, many physical laws will change. If the orbital rotation is to change, many laws will change. So, that's the relativity of laws of physics. And gravity is one of the most important thing, and in physical sciences, physical laws of physical sciences, the laws of physics, the gravity is so important. Now the orbital rotation and the axial rotation is because of the gravity. The given gravity, and that gravity has not changed in last 4,500 million years. So understand how it is static, how it is invariable. But if it happens to be variable, and if there is a variation, the whole physics will go topsy-turvy. Anyway, the physics is going to change on another planet. What is 1 kilo on our planet is going to be 1/6 of the weight on the moon. So it is going to be 600 grams on the moon. And 1 kilo on the planet is going to weigh differently on different planets. And on the sun, it would be weighing in some millions of tons. 1 kilo would be weighing in millions of tons. So that is how these sciences are based on certain invariable factors. So the physics of the earth will not be the physics on the moon or physics on the Mars or physics on Jupiter or physics on the sun or physics beyond the solar system and out in the universe. Anyway, that's little amusement for you. The point is that we're coming back to the Shastras. The Shastras have been having their postulations kalpa after kalpa after kalpa after kalpa. They are not changed, particularly metaphysical postulations. That is why there is something called as metaphysics. So for metaphysics, it doesn't really matter whether you are on the earth or outside the earth or outside the solar system or outside the galaxy. Metaphysical laws are not going to change, but physical laws are going to change, and therefore the physics is going to change and the sciences are going to change. But the Shastras are not going to change. So coming to this Shastra Jnana Shastrartham Shastriya Jnanam, the wisdom of the lore which deals with particular subject matter such as metaphysics. That doesn't require any terrestrial condition to operate or any terrestrial condition getting modified. That is going to remain as it is. So in Shastra Jnanam, the process is that we do Shastra Adhyanam, we study the sciences, we hear about the sciences, we formally study the sciences, what is called as Shastra Adhyanam, Shastra Abhyas. So, with that study, it is going to improve our subjectivistic processes of application of logic, intellectual processes. So as we saw in the last session, there is a convection. So when we read Shastras, our thought process is going to change. And the thought process is going to improve. When the thought process improves, we once again look into same Shastras, same texts, same precepts. We have different comprehension, better comprehension, upgraded comprehension. Therefore, again, that improves our thought process, subjectivistic logic and intellectual process applied. And again, we look into the Shastras once again, and again, by convection, our subjectivistic process get improved. So this is how the convection operates. Now, when such convection operates in metaphysical realm, we need to depend upon that knowledge process, which is intuitively mystic knowledge process. That is samadhi in simple words. So the samadhi is another subjectivistic aspect to process the knowledge. And that would again entail Shastradhyanam once again, and then the empirical subjectivistic process. So this is the additional thing that we get it apart from study of Shastras and then empirical subjectivistic processes of thought, analysis, synthesis, intellectual processes. We have additional thing which is called intuitive mystic process, again subjectivistic. So this is a third factor which comes in that convection. Now it's not only convection of two factors, but a third factor. So in yogic process, there is unique blend, a confluence of the three aspects which I just now suggested. And then there will be immaculate blending and superb reasoning, faultless access to revelations, and stainless mystic intuition for the uncontaminated, uninterrupted, discriminate discernment called Vivekyati. And that is aviplavita Vivekyati. So before yogi gets aviplavita Vivekyati, he has several rounds of Vivekyati is coming up, progressively upgraded, getting upgraded. And finally then the evolvement is to acme, and that is called Plavita Vivekyati, which has been referred to in this sutra. So, we should see that what underlies this Plavita Vivekyati is everything empirical process, tarka, that is logic, reasoning, shastrartha nirnayam, pratibha jnanam, intuitive knowledge. So it's all supporting the structure which culminates at aviplavita vivekakhyati. And then there is the tattva sakshatkar, which is a grand finale of knowledge process. It is absolutely immaculate, complete, ashesha, vishesha, nishesha jnanam, and absolutely pure, spotless, taintless, faultless. And this needs actually the faultlessness of the psyche and consciousness. See, our mind stuffs are tainted, dented, and therefore we get refractions of our knowledge or refracted knowledge. Our knowledge is refracted because of the taint in our chitta, because of indentations on our chitta. But by yogic process, all these dents go away, taints go away, absolutely. And the chitta becomes immaculately pure and transparent. And therefore, the knowledge that it would get depicted on it would be faultless. And there won't be even slightest refraction, which is otherwise a case of our psyche consciousness. Our knowledge is always refracted because of the rajatama gunas in the chitta, vasanas, samskars playing havoc in the chitta. Whereas the yoga speaks about or ensures that the chitta is purified, immaculately purified, and then the knowledge that would appear would be faultless. And it is to be also understood here that, after all, this knowledge, or for that matter, any knowledge, even our knowledge, it is coming from within. But by the time it reaches our psyche and consciousness, it gets refracted, distorted, contorted. But for a yogi, it won't be happening like that. We have often quoted that verse from Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter and 15th verse. Sarvasya chaham bhrudisannivishtaha mattaha smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So it happens to right from everyone from us that our knowledge is actually the knowledge given by divinity from within. So knowledge is an internal broadcast that reaches our psyche and consciousness. But our receiving stations are faulty, and therefore we do not receive the knowledge as it is dispensed by the inner call. But in case of a yogi, that is not the case. The receiving station is absolutely impeccable, immaculate, faultless. And therefore the jnanam that would come from inner call would be as it is radiated or broadcasted. And therefore yogi is able to get that ultimate final knowledge because the giver of it, the preceptor, is omniscient, omnipotent, and the receiving station is now immaculate to receive it. So now you can understand, in case of a yogi, if you apply the verse of Bhagavad Gita, rather than applying it to you and me and commoners, that he is in our heart, he is residing in the heart, as he is residing in the heart of all of us. But of course, his residence in the heart of a yogi stands out. So, mattaha smritihi jnanam apohanam cha. So all those processes come from him. And then we can imagine how enormously upgraded all that would be when it comes in the heart of a yogi, when the knowledge appears in the psyche of a yogi. I recall another verse of Bhagavad Gita 10.11, where Bhagwan says, Tesham eva anukampartham aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami atmabhavastha jnanadipena bhaswata. Tesham eva anukampartham. He is compassionate to all of us equally. But although he is equally compassionate, the compassion to such a sagacious person, a yogi, would stand out. Where the ajnanajam tama is totally removed. Nashayami, he says, I destroy that tamas by being within the heart, atma bhavastha, and I am like a light within the heart. You see, the sun is at the distance of 93 million miles or 150 million kilometers from our planet. And the sun is radiating same light, same power, same energy. It doesn't discriminate. But how does the sun reach equatorial band? And how does it reach the polar regions? The sun is not discriminating as to how much and how many rays and how much light and heat should go to equator and how much that should go to polar regions. But the receiving station at polar region receives differently than receiving station at the equator. And that's why equator is called tropic zone. So similarly, this divinity is residing in the heart of all of us. Another thing, let me tell you, if the sun is at 93 million miles or 150 kilometers, 1 million kilometers from the earth, it is same distance from the moon. But see what the sun does on the moon, what the moon gets from the sun, and what the earth gets from the sun is giving the same. The sun doesn't discriminate, it is giving the same. But because the moon has no atmosphere, what happens to the sunlight? And because the earth has atmosphere, what happens to sunlight? So we have our kind of life on the planet, but we don't have our kind of life on the moon, which is almost the same distance. So similarly, we are something like moon, and sagacious people are something like earth. So being earth-like, they have lot of bounty from sun, and we being moon-like, we don't have so much of bounty coming to us. The sun is not discriminating, but our position, our condition really matters. The gravity of the moon is different than gravity of the sun, of the earth. And therefore the moon is different and earth is different, although distance wise there is not much difference at all, almost no difference at all. This is what happens to the immanent divinity is in all of us, and he is in yogi. But what difference take place is clear in this verse. Tesham eva, for them, anukampartham aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami. But then that doesn't happen in us, although he has the same anukampa, compassion, but we have so much clouded atmosphere of dirt, tamoguna, rajoguna, vasana, samskar. Our atmosphere is not clear. Like when the sky is not clear, we don't get the sunlight. All the sunlight is not economizing in radiations. We don't get the sunlight because of overcast conditions. So our heart atmosphere is overcast, and therefore we don't receive what is coming from within, the divine call, the inner call. And there is no such atmosphere, thick atmosphere, for those who are referred to as Tesham in Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, they get what they get, although the giver is giving the same. It is also relevant to consider a quotation that is in Ishavasya Upanishad, the 15th hymn of Samhita. Hiranmayena patrena satyasya abhihitam mukham tattvam pushan aprovanam satya dharmaya drashtave. Hiranmayena patrena, golden vessel. The satyam in it, the truth in it, is apihitam mukham, is veiled. This is what is the reason why we don't get the truth. But when the coat, the veil is gone away, when there is unveilment, then we will be getting the satyam, which is in the Hiranmaya Patra, the very heart, figuratively. The point is, the yogi therefore gets Sattva Purusha Anyata Khyati. So, I recall Vyasa telling us here, Sattva Purusha Anyatha Pratyayo Viveka Khyati. So that is the Viveka Khyati, where the distinction is discerned very, very clearly and conspicuously. Now this Viveka Khyati annuls or annihilates avidya, mithya jnanam. But until the aviplava viveka khyati, there will be always obstruction, alternations, appearance and disappearance of the viveka khyati. It would fade in, fade out, go away, come back, etc. And that is why Patanjali clearly says, aviplava viveka khyatihi hanopayaha. So why is the Viveka Khyati fading in and fading out? Sa tu anivruttya mithya jnana plavate. The plavanam, why it is spoiled, why it is mitigated, it is because of mithya jnanam. Mithya jnanam not having gone, anivruttya. Mithya jnanam not having gone completely, then this Viveka Khyati would be surfacing, depressing. So it is khandita. Viveka Khyati is khandita. It is obstructed, and it is also khandita, but that means interrupted. It will be interrupted. So this is due to subliminal impressions of misapprehension. The viparyaya rupa klesha or mithya jnana samskara. That is why this happens even for a yogi who has got Vivekyati. But then when that is accomplished process, then there is aviplava Vivekyati. So it is actually gunas which are playing havoc. The sattva rajatamo gunas fade in, fade out, etc., alternate. And that is why this happens. Fluctuation happens in Vivekyati of a yogi. Although he has Vivekyati gotten through samadhi, yet once getting that is not sufficient. I recall Vyasa telling us here, Yada mithya jnanam dagda bija bhavam vandhya prasavam sampadyate tada vidhuta klesha rajasaha sattvasya pare vaisharadde parasyam vashikara sagnayam vartamanasya viveka pratyaya pravaho nirmalo bhavati. So when does it become aviplava, nirmala? So Vyasa has explained this in this comment that I quoted just now. So therein he has said, when the mithya jnanam has become dagda bija kalpa, when it has been taken to burnt seed stage, and therefore there will be no more sprout, and then it is not going to germinate anything from it, then it becomes vandhya prasava. It becomes barren. The klesha becomes barren. It doesn't bear out offspring of the nature of avidya. So prasava karya samarthya shunyam. That there won't be further generation of the avidya. And then there is sattva paravaisharadyam. That is highest proficiency in sattva guna. And therefore the Vivekyati is now nirmala. That is aviplavita. And then the Vashikara Sagnya Vairagyam gives Vivekam, and then Paravairagyam gives aviplavita Vivekyati, and that is how the Kaivalyam takes place. And that is why aviplavita Vivekyati is the means of liberation. Point to be noted, not Vivekyati the means, but aviplavita Vivekyati. Now comes a question in the mind of curious student of the Shastra or Darshana. When aviplavita Vivekyati comes, the sanyoga bhava takes place. That means samyogam goes away. And therefore, if the moksha is coming up, in what way it is said that asamprajnat samadhi is not having any prayojanam? How come that you say that there is no cause for Kaivalyam? As discussed earlier, on earlier occasions, we said Kaivalya doesn't have a cause and Kaivalya is not an effect. But then can you not say here that asamprajnat samadhi, which gives rise to paravairagya, has prayojanam, has purpose, and is a causal thing for aviplavita Vivekyati? Gunavaitrushnya janya paravairagyam, is it not then useless in spiritual samam bonam? So the question is asked. Earlier we were quite vehemently arguing that the Kaivalya is not something that is going to come up, moksha is not something that is to come up, because if it comes up, it is an effect, if it is an effect, it is impermanent, etc. But here, as the process has been explained, it projects a reality that there is something as a cause, such as asampragnat samadhi, paravairagya, etc., are perceived to be causal for this aviplavita viveka khyati. So on one hand you argued there is no cause, on the other hand you are postulating that there is a causal process. So now to satisfy this question here, the viveka khyati gets viplava by vyuthana, and then when the vyuthana comes up, the body calls, the mind calls, natural calls for the body, natural calls for the mind, they all surface. And the relationship between vairagya and samadhi is such that as the chitta is reinforced in vairagya, so and so, by and by, the chitta would be getting purified, immaculate, and the chitta will slowly lose gravities of all objects, and the vashikara sagna would, vairagya would appear. And in such vairagya process, ultimately, there would be paravairagya appearing and asampragnat samadhi actualizing. So, it is for the evolvement of the chitta that all these processes are there, and the chitta gets evolved. Chitta becomes transparent absolutely and pure and becomes immaculate. And that pure chitta gives aviplavita viveka khyati. But then, in Kaivalya, the chitta itself is dissembled. Chitta itself is destroyed. So the chitta is destroyed, and then is actualization of moksha. So the moksha is a very mysterious state. It is not effect of something, it is very much within us. Something has to go, and that is adarshanam has to go, the avidya has to go, the chitta constitution itself should go, there should be disembowelment of the chitta itself. And therefore again that argument stands valid. So anyway, that's how this aviplavita viveka khyati has been postulated and described and explained. Now, we certainly come to a point then that there must be, what is this Viveka Khyati? Now we have to come to a point where we have to understand this aviplavita Viveka Khyati. What is this aviplavita? So far we have been just saying that it is unalternated, it is unaltered, it is constant, it is incessant. Then what is this Viveka Khyati of the grade called aviplavita? So Patanjali embarks upon explaining this, and this is such an important explanation that is going to come up. So far, whatever we tried to explain, these things did not come. It is Patanjali now who is going to open out this portal to explain this aviplavita viveka khyati, that he is going to explain in the Sutra 2.27, the following Sutra. The next Sutra, immediately following Sutra. The Sutra is interesting. He says, Tasya saptadha pranta bhumihi prajna. Saptadha Pranta Bhumi. So what is this Saptadha Pranta Bhumi? Prajna. This Vivekyati is Prajna. Aviplavita Vivekyati is Prajna. Then what is the difference between the earlier Vivekakyatis which came through Samadhi process and now this one final? What is the difference between all those which came in several rounds for a yogi and this one which is going to stand out because the moksha is going to get actualized? Kaivalya is going to actualized. What is really the difference between the final Vivekakhyati, culminating Vivekakhyati and all earlier Vivekakhyati? So we need to have clear distinction of these two crystallized, and for that purpose the next sutra is going to come and we will be discussing that sutra, but that will be in our next session. Enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.